Welcome to the lecture about starting, or restarting as the case may be. I'm recording this on a Friday late afternoon, right at the end of 2013. There's about 4 or 5 days here before we go into 4 days before we go into the new year, and a lot of people are thinking about starting or restarting their writing. And I thought, I'm thinking about it too. So even though I've been going consistently for this entire year, I thought this would be a good time to actually do this lecture. So that's also another thing is right out that way about 100 yards and on the other side of some windows is Highway 101 here on the Oregon coast. And sometimes on a Friday night it gets a little noisy. So if you hear some rumblings and weird stuff in the background, that's what that is. This is my office here in WMG. Actually, this part of it and another part, and I have all my books up around the ceiling. See all the covers up there that have been put up around the top, and so it's a real comfortable place. And I'm kind of happy about starting into 2014 here and going with the writing. So let's talk about starting. I'll tell you, as a writer, I have an enormous amount of experience with this. Simply for the fact is that I am not, even though my blog would show otherwise in the last 5 months here, since August, I am not normally a consistent writer. I am what's called a sprint writer. I do big projects quickly and then don't write for a while. So I am constantly faced and have always constantly been faced over the decades and decades of my writing career of restarting, starting up a new project, starting up something. And I have come up with hundreds of ways and tricks and everything else. And some worked for a while, some didn't. That's the key with this is you're always kind of evolving in how you get yourself started. Sometimes a project gets you excited and you just start on it and start writing. Sometimes getting excited about a project is the worst thing that can happen because you'll feel like the project's gains some importance or something, and then you will bog down in, oh, I don't know where to start this. A lot of people on starting a big project like a novel or something will outline so that they feel more comfortable about starting. But often you can get lost in outlining just as easily. No writer is the same, but how do you get those first words down? How do you get going? And that's what this is all about here, is how do you get actually started creating new words in writing. That's what this entire lecture is about, and all the tricks and the problems. So I'm going to start off with here in these first 3-4 videos some of the reasons and some of the problems that we face as writers and what stops us from starting. That didn't sound right. What blocks our way from starting? What doesn't let us get to even a starting gate and even to the first word sometimes? Let me talk about those. And then I'm going to go on into a whole bunch of tricks and methods and ways of looking at things that should get you going. There are lots and lots of ways, and you may use combinations of these. There's been all kinds of things going on over the years that with writers, and that I've been involved with some of them. I'll let you know when they worked, how long they worked, that sort of stuff. So get going on that. One of the feelings about here, or starting off, one of the feelings about getting started writing is, of course, it encompasses all kinds of things. But number one is it feels like there's just nothing coming. You're sitting there and you're kind of going, and even if you get sitting there, often getting to the writing is that's number one step. No energy. It just doesn't feel like you're excited about anything. It doesn't feel like there's any reason to get going. There's reasons for all of this. Of course, a lot of it has to do with overwhelmness. You're overwhelmed. Making up new words today. You're overwhelmed by the business itself, and you've allowed that to come into your writing. It's difficult sometimes to keep it out. I am no exception. I've made my living at this for a long time, and so keeping the business world outside of my writing world is often the biggest challenge that professional writers have, and a lot of us fail. I mean, for a long time, I was a media writer. I had to have the business right inside of what I was doing because I wrote for other people. I wrote in other universes. I wrote to hire. I was hired. I was hired as a ghostwriter for more books than I want to care to imagine. And where I would literally have to go study another writer's voice and cadence and pacing and everything about how their sentence structure, everything, so I could mimic them and create novels that their fans would love and they would think would be written by that novelist. That's where you go out and take the business in full scale, stick it right on top of your keyboard, and type right through the business. But I'll tell you, folks, that's not the way to do it. It takes a certain mental weirdness to be able to write inside of business all the time. You hear this all the time from writers who are just starting off, and that is, oh, what should I write? What genre should I write? Boy, I'll tell you, that's the quickest way to freeze yourself down and not even be able to get started. So there's lots of that. The first thing I can say here is, as much as possible, get the business world. If you're afraid of indie publishing, if you're afraid of mailing something off to an editor in New York, get that fear outside. Finish the project first, and then deal with that fear away from the typing. And that's part of the stuff we're going to talk about here. But there's lots going on in this new world. You can get your books right to readers now. It's great fun, but first you got to write them. And this lecture is about how to get to that writing and how to get started on that writing. I suppose it's another lecture how to keep going on the writing, but this lecture is how to get started. So back in a minute.